we are looking at the opening screen of Adobe Fuse. Adobe Fuse is a 3D character modeling tool with applications for workflows in game design. It's a very simple and easy interface that allows non-3D modelers the ability to create very detailed 3D character models. This is really constructed for integration of model character building with game engines such as Unity 3D. So we'll begin by choosing a skin color, sex, and body type. I'm going to work with this rather brutish fellow here in the middle. I'll begin by selecting the head. It does a quick render of that head in your screen in profile. By grabbing anywhere on that axis, you can rotate that head in 3D space. Then by using this top icon here, you can position it on the XY axis. Again, over to rotating is the second one down, resetting the image to its initial state. And then there's the selection tool. Now the selection tool lets you select regions for customization. So for instance, if we look at the bridge of the nose or the ears, you can see certain areas are highlighting. And if I click on that, I'm able to make adjustments. You'll notice that the ear became much smaller. As I move down, or if I move up, I make it larger. Sometimes moving to the left will create a change, sometimes moving to the right, and sometimes up and down also cause changes. So right now you can see that we're just playing with the orientation. I'm pointing the ears here slightly just by dragging this. We can also access a customization menu, which gives you access to a bank of sliders. So you notice if I select the nose, the active region is indicated. This is the nose ridge. And I can use the sliders to affect changes to the ridge of the nose. You can see that happening here. And again, if I select the ears, I can make them less pointy or more pointy. And I can affect size of the ears and the lobes. So we have a slider-based approach, which is more accurate, or a very manual approach, which allows us to alter regions that we've selected. I'm just going to rotate the model, and you can see here that we have the eyes, and we can change the set of the eyes with respect to the center axis of the head. And again, under customization, we can see that we can alter the positioning of the eyes by the sliders, set them further apart or closer together. Now, when we start working with the model, we can take a look at texturing. And texturing gives us more fine-grained detail. So for instance, if we look in the eyes, I'm just going to use my scroll wheel on my mouse to zoom in a little bit more, and then just pan down. And you can see here under eyes that we can change the color of the eyes from green to whatever color we wanted, to blue, and we can change the color of the whites of the eyes to make it a more brilliant white if we want for more contrast. We can change the iris pupil size. We can give it feline pupils. You can see the change there. Human pupils. Change the size of those pupils to indicate a highly excited state or perhaps a more disinterested catatonic state with smaller pupils. So you can kind of send emotional state signals through your character modeling as well. So there are a number of veins, make the eyes more bloodshot, and we're just going to reduce that. And of course, you can stain the iris with various colors and give a very accurate and fairly realistic rendering of the iris and pupil and the eyeball itself. Now, once you've chosen your features, and among those, I'm just going to pan down here, among those would be facial hair. So I'm just going to concentrate here on beards. There's a number of beards that I could choose from. There's a goatee, and there's some others. You can change the hair intensity. Go with this beard here. That's facial hair. Again, you can look at teeth and change the coloring of the gums and the teeth themselves, and we can age the skin, make this person look more old with detailed wrinkles, and we can add things like beauty marks, freckles, effects of sun. We can add makeup and increase the tan of that individual, make them look exposed to the sun, and so on and so forth. We'll go back to the assembly phase and we'll choose a torso that would be appropriate for someone of this size and stature. And again, the torso, with the selection tool, we can select regions like the pecs, set them further apart, closer together, higher up, lower down. And again, using the Customize menu, we can customize the active regions using sliders as well. Now, we're going to move back to assembly and we're going to choose a leg. Again, they're rendered. You can select and manipulate these things manually. Or again, by using Customize, you can focus on the active regions and make the necessary adjustments. And back and choose an arm. And again, with customization, you can alter the musculature, change the length of the arms, raise them, lower them, and change the ratios of the bone structure, and so on. Next is clothing. I'm just going to use a military look because of a lot of role-playing games and first-person shooter games. It's not uncommon to have a lot of characters in your game that would be wearing military clothing. You can choose tops. You can choose from bottoms. Strangely enough, I'm just going to choose some shoes. Hair comes under clothing. And you can see that you can put hair on an individual. And it's worn sort of like an accessory. I guess you could call these, instead of hair, maybe wigs would be more appropriate. I'm going to go with a mohawk here. Now again, with everything else, once you have the hair, you have the capacity for looking at the texture of these things. And if we look at the color, could make it, we could color it purple. That seems to be a popular color these days. So now this fellow's got a purple mohawk. Again, the scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and to zoom out. And then we'll just use that pan tool and you can see what we have here. Now at any time you can use the selection tool and select things and make changes. I'm just going to drop the intensity level. I can increase the detail level and the roughness of the hair. I can put streaks in it. So we have a kind of two-tone effect in there. And really, this is your opportunity to get creative and customize your character in a manner consistent with your character descriptions. Also under clothing, you have hats. I've just covered over his mohawk there. You've got eyewear. And again, you've even got more beards available to you in this particular one. So we could work with those beards. Again, with the selection tool, we can select that, taking a look at the color of that beard and perhaps make it a little bit grayer. And there we've got a slightly more gray beard. It fits in with his camouflage. Once we're finished with the clothing, our model's pretty much ready to save. So we're going to take a look after this at a couple of the formats. One saves a version of this directly to your Creative Cloud library for integration into Photoshop, so you could customize your model even further. I use it often to put logos on my goons for the games that I work on, and you can see I've got a logo here that at some point I want to put on this soldier's pocket. And we'll take a look at how to do that in Photoshop later on. And you would do that through this Save to Creative Cloud Libraries workflow. We're now going to move on before taking a look at the Creative Cloud workflow in Photoshop. We're going to take this model into the Mixamo platform, which is used for rigging and animating the model. Rigging, of course, is creating all the points of articulation in the skeletal model of the character, determining the number of points of articulation, where those points of articulation exist, in order that we can control the kinematics of our model, the movement. And then, of course, the final piece is to animate that model. And once we animate it, we're going to capture the animation on video and then bring those animated video characters into a composited scene in After Effects. So for now, I'm just going to wrap this piece up by saving out to Mixamo. We need to give it a name, and I'm just going to call this fellow Goon 1. Save that. Now, if you don't have Mixamo opened, it's all web browser enabled. If you don't have a web browser opened, it will probably prompt you to open one up. If you've never used Mixamo before, it's also going to prompt you to create a new account, which ties to your Adobe ID. I was preparing the model. You can see the Mixamo window opening up here. Now, because this is a web-based service, depending on how many people are hitting the server for rendering, it may take longer or may take less time. But you'll notice that it's automatically rigged the model and it's already moving around on the screen. Now you'll notice that facial blend shapes is currently disabled. This is another amazing technology by Adobe that works on facial recognition. You could actually have your computer's camera track your own face so that when you move your eyes or your mouth or your head, the model would follow along. This is an important innovation in terms of being able to lip sync your model to dialogue that might be in your animation or game model interaction. Rather than having to manually rig and animate mouth and eye movements, this software will do it for you automatically. It's quite amazing to see it being done live. But for our purposes, we're going to leave this disabled because we're not going to be doing any close shots of any dialogue, so we're not going to need that. You can choose the number of articulation points, and we're just going to use the standard skeleton. As you reduce this, you'll notice how it's reducing the skeletal information. And it's just using the hand as an example. So you would have absolutely no articulation of the fingers here. It would just be as if the fingers were acting like a mitten. We're going to go with very articulate phalanges or fingers with, you can see here, all the articulation points. And then we're just going to say update rig. So it's going through, it's rigging that skeleton up with all its points of articulation, right down to the individual points in the hand. And this would allow us to change the hand to grip items in our environment, to make various hand gestures like peace signs, etc. And again, this is just taking a little bit of time. It's usually very fast. Again, this will depend on the speed of your internet connection. And here it is. There's our model in Mixamo, and it's ready for us to explore animation. I'm just going to conclude here and then pick up with the animating process a little later on in another video.